So I'm really grateful that you came in, Anouska. I've had, quite a few women reach out since I've been talking about abortion, sharing with me how intense that journey has been for them. But, you know, I haven't had anyone to really be brave enough to share the experience. Yeah, so how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think when I first started talking about it, it was really hard.
Yeah.
And every time that I did, it got easier.
Okay.
So I think I broke through that.
Yeah, and that's why I felt comfortable asking you to be my first interview because I knew you'd spoken about it before in some speeches and things recently. And so I thought, well, I don't want to just interview women who are not ready because it's such a big thing to go through. So maybe we could just start with your first abortion.
Yeah. So I had just turned 25 and I was in a not committed relationship, off and on again, and it was a shock. I went to the doctors and he did the test and then told me I was pregnant and simultaneously handed me a pamphlet for abortion. Oh, wow. In the same...
Did he just assume you were going to get an abortion? Or?
He said that he legally had to give me my options and that was my option.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Okay.
So I think I was pretty early on in my pregnancy and I told the father and he had actually already had a child with another girl and already had an abortion with another girl. So I knew what he wanted. He didn't want a child, but he said it was up to me.
Were you in love with him?
I was in love with the idea of him. I think I loved being in a relationship, but I don't think he was my, forever dream guy. He wasn't a good guy.
Okay.
But he was a fulfillment. And probably my first in that regard.
When you say he wasn't a good guy, was he abusive at all?
No, but he wasn't...
Just wasn't decent.
Yeah.
Not the guy you bring home to mum and dad.
Exactly.
But the guy you kind of have a bit of a fling with in your 20s.
Yes, but not the guy that I wanted to have a child with.
Okay, and you knew that. And when he said to you, it's your choice...
Yeah, so I read between the lines that he wasn't interested in having another child, because he didn't even want the one he had, but the woman who fell pregnant with his child refused to have an abortion.
Did she?
Yeah. But I was terrified. I never thought, even though I was having unprotected sex, I never thought that I would fall pregnant. I'd been diagnosed with polycystic at that point. Ovarian syndrome and was told it was very hard to fall pregnant, and it was just something that I didn't take responsibility over because I was being just
in your 20s,
just foolish.
Sometimes people
not thinking, and you just think that other contraceptives are enough. But I was terrified, and so I called him. He said that, and I think it was still like another month that I waited until the cutoff, because the doctor did say that I had time until 12 weeks before it would get more serious.
Okay.
So the abortion procedure would change after the 12-week cutoff. So I had that time to decide. So I had weeks.
But did the doctor tell you anything then that every week you wait, your baby is getting more developed?
No, but I already knew that.
You knew that?
I knew that because when I was young, I went to all the pro-life rallies and I went to all the prayer vigils and I read all the books. And
so you're from a Christian family?
Yes.
That taught you that stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
So Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who was one of the main doctors to get, I think he got Roe versus Wade.
He was an abortionist.
Yes, he was an abortionist.
And he gave evidence for Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
And the Supreme Court believed his evidence about backyard abortion. He admitted later that he made all that stuff up.
And he aborted his own child in his book. So I read his book when I was younger. It's just science and logic as well as Christian teaching.
So you knew that you had a baby, that this baby was developing, But what was going through your head between week 6 to week 12?
Well, I was thinking, to be honest, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I knew I wasn't going to keep the baby.
Okay.
But I waited those weeks because I knew that it was wrong to have an abortion because I would be murdering my child.
Yeah.
So it was a very weird time.
Yeah.
Because it was like prolonging the inevitable in a way because I didn't make any active moves to keep my child. Yeah. Like I had a friend offer to take me in and to help me and everything like that.
So you told some people?
I told one friend and I told some family that I knew wouldn't push either way. Yeah. They were neutral.
But you didn't tell your mum or dad? Or
no, but I moved out of home so they wouldn't find out.
Okay.
So,
you did? In that time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
and were you experiencing morning sickness or anything?
Yeah, I was really sick.
Yeah.
Yep. Really unwell.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I still, it was a very, very strange time. I think I kind of wanted to delay the inevitable, but from the get-go I knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Because I had just recovered from 6 years of in and out of hospital with anorexia, and I almost died. Yeah. And I wasn't willing to give my life over to a child and to a man that he wasn't committed.
Yeah. And
he wasn't what I considered to be a good father material. But then what's the alternative? Kill my child because the dad's not a good dad.
Yeah.
So, I remember calling. I can't remember if he called or I called the clinic, and then he dropped me off. And then it only cost me $5 because Medicare covered the rest.
Yeah.
And then that was at the 12-week cutoff, just before it got more serious. And then there were a few women in the waiting room. And then before I went through, the nurse did an ultrasound. Yeah. And then I heard my baby's heartbeat.
Yeah, wow. Did you look like at the ultrasound?
No.
So did they... Because I've had babies and you look and they show you and they talk about what's going on with the baby. And so what happens when you're going in for an ultrasound for an abortion?
Well, I don't think they're meant to. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I don't know if it's mandatory. I think it does happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think they do it partly to determine whether you've got an ectopic pregnancy. But by 12 weeks you wouldn't. Yeah. Because that just wouldn't, I don't think, happen by 12 weeks. But
what I've heard is that they generally do it to see the size of the baby so that they can then see what it's going to take to remove the baby and what to charge you at the end. Wow. Because by size.
So were you at a private clinic or were you at a hospital?
No. So there's 2 abortion clinics in Perth, and this was the one that was closest to me.
Yeah, and you were paying for it?
$5 because Medicare covered the rest.
It was $5? Yeah. To kill your child.
Yeah, and Medicare, the government.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how much I think it should cost, but that's insane. Yeah. Because they actually talk about how expensive and abortion is and how difficult it is to access. Yes.
Well, I don't know why, but because I had another abortion 2 years later, that was like $600. So I don't know.
So we'll talk about that one in
a minute. I don't know why there was a price difference.
So you're sitting in the abortion clinic, there's an ultrasound going on, your baby's 12 weeks?
Just before that,
And what's happening?
It was just really surreal. I think once I'd decided, it was a matter of just going through the motions. Yeah. And so when she did the ultrasound, because you're all ready to go in your scrubs or whatever, and she's like, "I'm just going to do this ultrasound," and what I didn't expect was to hear a heartbeat. Yeah. That was confronting. Yeah. But again, I had made my mind up well before I walked into that clinic. Yeah. So it was just a matter of pushing that even further down. Yeah. And then I went through with it.
Yeah. Did you have any voice saying don't do it, Anouska?
I'd like to think I did, but...
Not really that you were aware of?
I don't know. I don't think I did.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Yeah. I've never been through it. I just wondered, was there a little voice saying...
I think... I wanted to believe that I did, and that's why I pushed it out.
Yeah.
But I think I made my mind up from the start, and it was.
Yeah. Can I ask you something? A lot of women who had abortions, they say they did it for their child because they were not in a place to raise that child. Was that what you were thinking, or was it more because you'd come out of this eating disorder, or were you doing it for you?
I was definitely doing it for me. I don't understand that logic. I think so you're going to kill your child instead of needing to get help to raise your child.
Yeah.
Is that the argument?
Yeah, that's the argument.
Yeah, I don't understand that logic. There is so many pregnancy support centres. If anybody needs help with pregnancy, there are ample places. Yeah. That's, in my opinion, with all due respect, it's a cop-out because it's just a not real thing. So what's the alternative? You actually would rather kill your child.
Yeah.
I would have had everything at my disposal.
Yeah.
You know, I had the right connections through my parents' church or through other social enterprises. And
Were you worried about shame at all from the church and people going?
No, because I just didn't think about it. I was living my own life.
Yeah. So it wasn't shame. It wasn't anything. It was just you didn't want to have the child at that point.
No, I had literally just gotten my life back.
Yeah.
I had almost died repeatedly, struggled with all these problems and the eating disorder for years. Finally got my life on track, was living my best life. Yeah. And then I fell pregnant. Yeah. And I wasn't about to let a baby get in the way.
Yeah. What about if he turned around and said, I'll help, we'll raise this child together?
Yeah, so, or you mean if he did?
Yeah, the partner.
Yeah, no. I'd like to think I would, but I wouldn't have.
You reckon you still would have said no?
Yeah, because he said he was going to support me either way. But ultimately, it was up to me. Yeah. And even if he'd said, but I really want to have this child, my desire to live my own life was stronger than my desire to put a child first.
Yeah, so what was the abortion? So was yours like a suction abortion? Or?
I'm assuming so. I never actually got the notes, or I certainly didn't get a phone call or a checkup afterwards.
Yeah.
I didn't get a doctor's.
They would have asked you, right? And said, we've got these different methods, which one do you want to use?
Not that I can remember. I literally rang up, didn't even have a pre-appointment with them. They just booked me in. For the abortion? Yeah. And then I went, paid, and they did it, and then I left. And I never heard from them again.
How long did it take?
I can't remember it taking very long. I wasn't there for not even a whole day.
And it was under anaesthetic?
Yeah, I was knocked out.
Fully knocked out?
Yeah, fully knocked out.
Yeah, so they definitely didn't give you what they call a medical abortion with the pills, where they...
Oh, no.
They obviously did some kind of surgical, whether it was with the suction vacuum or whether the D&C, where they break the body apart. You don't know which one, though? No, I never... It wasn't... on my radar to find out how they were going to kill my child. I just wanted them to do it. Yeah. Wow. And so then when you left, is there any discussion about what happens with the child or?
No. So I didn't get any more information or any, just told about you might be having heavy bleeding for a while. Yeah. And that was it.
And did you have heavy bleeding?
Yeah.
Yeah. And pain or?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was, truthfully, as soon as it happened and I was kind of sobered from the anaesthetic, the father picked me up, and as soon as I sobered up, I just felt empty. Yeah. And it was then that engulfed me. Yeah. More than the pain or the physical symptoms or the fact that they didn't call me, they didn't check up on me, they didn't anything. Even the referral to my doctor, there was no continuation on.
So you'd felt really sure that you were going to do this, but then once you did do it, you almost automatically felt empty.
Oh, 100%. It was as soon as I got back to where I was staying with him, it was... No, that's okay.
Another thing to go through.
But it's...
Yeah.
it was very, I guess it's confronting because you know what you're doing, you're willing to do it, but then once you've done it, you can't undo it.
Yeah, I know. It's really permanent.
So that, but then you're stuck with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you've made the decision and you've just got to.
So what happens next for you then in your life?
So then I pretty much freaked out.
Yeah.
And he put it back on me.
Yeah.
Told me that I had made the decision, so I had to deal with it. And I was having panic attacks, nightmares, just completely the reality of what I'd done. I guess up to that point it was kind of like some weird, surreal dream, but then it was, I could physically feel the emptiness afterwards, whereas before, you know, you're carrying life, you can feel that you're carrying life. Yeah. And then afterwards it was just this emptiness, and it was because I had literally killed my own child. So I tried to get his, I don't know, share the grief with him, but he didn't want to have a bar of it.
Do you think he experienced any grief?
Years later, I bumped into him and he kind of apologised, kind of.
Okay.
But at the time, no, he put it straight back on me, shut the door, literally. And so I went on my first methamphetamine binge, and from there, it just spiraled like out of control.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah.
You took meth for the first time.
Yes. Yeah.
How soon after your abortion?
I would say days.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you even know how to find meth?
Oh, so at that point I had already done like party drugs.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
But generally somebody in a party drug scene will know somebody who's got something stronger. So what I had done when he shut the door in my face was reach out to some friends that I did party drugs occasionally with, and I was just in the right place at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Don't know how to,
to offer me that.
Yeah.
And I just needed something to shut my everything up.
And what was that first experience on meth like?
Well, 3 days of just escapism, just trying to suppress the, I don't know how to articulate it, but I feel like I got swallowed up into a form of hell.
Yeah.
And to a degree that I hadn't experienced before.
Yeah.
So I had all those mental health, issues with the eating disorder. But this was completely different because this was of my own volition entirely, and I couldn't undo it no matter what I wanted to do. And the guilt and the shame and the rage just engulfed me, and the only thing that seemed to shut it all up was heavy drugs. Yeah. So that's what I pursued. Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that manifest?
So it manifested in me ending up as a heroin addict at 27.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened to the partner? Just obviously it doesn't.
Yeah. No. So he ended up in prison. And yeah. Go figure.
You should write a book.
Hey.
Oh my God. You should write a book. So far out. So the heroin addiction, like full on heroin addiction, like the stuff where. Yeah. So. What does that look like? Like you don't have a job, you wake up every day. I don't know. I'm pretty sheltered, so you're going to need to describe this for me. Like, only what I've seen in the movies.
The movies are fairly accurate.
Are they?
Except you've got to put it, I guess for me, it looked like trying to, my desire was to just numb out. Yeah. And that's what I did, and I tried to keep my head above the water, but I failed. Yeah. So I did go and try and detox several times. Yeah,
but it's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah, but the second, I can't remember what time it was that I was detoxing, was when I found out I was pregnant for the second time. Oh. And
Like while you were attempting to get your life back together, you found out you were pregnant?
Yeah, again.
How old were you?
27.
27, okay, yeah.
So that the clinic actually, the detox clinic actually organised for me to go to the abortion clinic.
Wow.
Yeah. And while I was detoxing.
Like, did they say that you should have an abortion?
Yeah, so I can't remember the ins and outs because I was like, but at some point I found out I was pregnant while I was in the clinic, and they said, look, you can have leave to get that sorted if you want. It's up to you. And at that point, then I just had to choose if I was going to carry the life that was now inside me, or I was going to do exactly what I'd done before, which was choose myself, essentially this time, choose my coping mechanism, which was drugs, to escape from the first abortion by doubling down on what had already spiraled me out of control, which was exactly what I chose to do. So I wasn't willing to relinquish my coping mechanism for a child. Yeah.
Did you feel really alone?
Yeah.
Like you seem like such a strong person.
Now I am.
Yeah.
Now I am.
What were you like? Were you like a mess, crying, or were you just sort of like rationalising it in your head and kind of?
I think the second time around, I had given myself over to this drug.
Yeah.
And it was my entire being, and I wasn't about to sacrifice anything, or I was going to sacrifice anything to maintain it. Even if that was my own child, at that idol of what was.
Do you know how old your child was?
So again, I waited until it was, still a later.
So like you found out earlier but waited? Or
So it was in some time of that couple of weeks that I was detoxing in the clinic that they found out, and then I had a time frame again.
Yeah, till 12 weeks or something.
Yeah, and it must have been towards the end of it.
Yeah.
But then I took leave from the clinic.
Yeah.
So I was detoxing well, but on the way back from the abortion, I went and got back on heroin and got kicked out of the clinic.
Oh.
So it was like...
Why do you think you did that?
Well, again, it was because if I am going to choose to literally murder for the second time my own child, then I've got one thing that's keeping me going that is blocking out this reality, and I need it now because I've literally just sacrificed my second child for my own ambitions or selfishness.
So the abortion industry would say that women who experience grief and pain like you did after the abortion, it's because of the shame and stigma that we all, as put on abortion. Yeah. Do you think that's right? Like, do you think it's? Okay. Why don't? Yeah.
No, I think that's a manipulative. It's very manipulative. I think it keeps women down in that shame. I think when you get yourself to the point where you're on the operating table, you've made a decision. Yeah. And then afterwards, that decision is, you're stuck with it. And it's, whether you want to admit it or not, it permeates every part of you. And what we have is a system where women who have abortions are victims. Yeah. And so it's very shameful to be victimized for something that you're not the victim of. Yeah. Then go, actually, I murdered my child. Yeah. So I'm not the victim, I'm the perpetrator, but I don't feel right about it and I can't undo it. I've done the wrong thing. Yeah. But you're making it out like I'm a victim. Yeah. I'm not a victim. Yeah. My child is a victim. Yeah. So I think the shame comes from this confusion of what is actually going on. Yeah. Because there's so much talk with pro-life, pro-abortion, and the terminology is so airy-fairy, when really, from the moment of fertilization, we know that a unique being is created, a human being.
And you knew that?
100%, because it's like your basic science that you're taught in school.
Yeah.
And then
it's like biology. It's human biology.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it was amplified on a spiritual level for me because I was taught it from the Bible. But either way, you've got it. You know that it's a human life from the very moment. So if I'm going to be really honest, like I've taken the morning after pill. Yeah. So I very well could have aborted more. Yeah. I wouldn't know. Yeah. But essentially that also, if there was a fertilized
embryo.
Exactly. That's a human that you're blocking being able to
grow and develop.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we get all PC about it, and we want to talk about it in other ways. But if you get yourself to the operating table and you've done that, you know exactly what you're doing. Yeah. And I think it becomes really hard afterwards to talk about it, because who can you talk about it with? If you talk about it with someone who's pro-choice, they're going to say, no, you did the right thing. You feel uncomfortable because it's, it was a hard decision, but you had to do it. And if you talk to someone from the pro-life movement, often they'll say, oh, you didn't know what you were doing. Okay. It was really hard. Yeah. But, like you can move on. And when really, where's the actual truth in the middle of that, where it's like, you know what, you actually, you murdered your own child. That's why you feel
really shitty.
Yeah, like exactly. That's why you're in hell right now. Yeah, because you've literally done the most horrific thing that a woman and a mother could ever do. Yeah. And it's really not okay. Yeah. And that's why you're just feeling so bad. Yeah. Yeah. But then there are those people, that whole shout your abortion hashtag. No. Oh, okay. Yeah. So like when New South Wales was legislating abortion up to birth, I think one of the MPs there shared about her abortion, and they had this whole like shout your abortion, we're all women who've had abortions, and I think there is this kind of movement to say it's something that should be celebrated. So there's people making cakes on the internet. Oh yeah. You've probably seen that. Yeah. So I guess I just wonder, I know a lot of women experience grief. I've certainly seen the research and the data. I've had women reach out to me. You've talked about it. Mm. It's not a universal thing, though, that women always experience this grief. No, and I think this is where the reality of sin comes into it, because the first time I felt it all more. Yeah. The second time I had hardened my heart, and that's what sin does. Yeah. It hardens your heart. So it was easier for me. Yeah. With my second abortion to do so. I didn't celebrate it. Yeah. I didn't applaud it. Yeah. I didn't give myself over to that in that sense. Yeah. Where I wanted other women to do it. I mean, I remember then talking about abortion with people, even in the last rehab, Christian rehab I was in, where I did have my massive transformation. I remember then talking to women and saying, oh, I personally wouldn't have another abortion, but I can't put that on anyone else. Yeah, you hear that argument a lot. But I'm personally opposed, but I'd still... Doesn't make any sense. And it's still detracting from the fact that abortion is literally modern day child sacrifice. Yeah. So you are destroying a human life in its beginning stages within the womb of its own mother. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense to me that you personally would be opposed to it, but are okay with other people doing it. It's like, well, why are you personally opposed to it then? Yes. Like, you clearly think there's something wrong with it. But I think there's a problem in the next step where it's very socially unacceptable to ever tell anyone what to do. Well, and also to be against, to actually say what we're saying is very unpalatable. I've constantly got people telling me I'm inflicting shame and judgment and trauma on them because I have a view that I express publicly that abortion kills a human being, so I get it. I think part of it is because the reality of abortion is so horrific and it is so evil. In our humanity, we don't want to comprehend it. We don't want to believe that women are actually capable of doing that willingly and knowingly destroying their own child.